Like and subscribe for more inspirational stories.
Mary woke up with a heavy heart, as if the world had decided to weigh more heavily on her that day. The morning was cold, and the wind came in through the cracks in the broken window, making the cloth curtain sway. The house, a simple wooden shack with loose tiles, seemed to want to tell the story of abandonment it was experiencing. Her husband, Wilson, had disappeared a month ago, taking their few savings and leaving only an old mattress and a dented pan. Mary looked at her daughter, Sophia, sleeping curled up in a corner, her tummy rumbling even in her sleep. I had no food left in the house. The last handful of rice had turned to thin porridge the night before. She stood up, feeling the cold floor on her bare feet, and wiped away a tear that insisted on falling. Pride screamed at her not to ask for help, but her love for her daughter spoke louder. Mary put on a worn-out pair of slippers, tied her hair with an old elastic band, and decided that today would be different. I couldn't let Sophia spend another day hungry. She thought about Miss Carman, the neighbor who always had a kind manner, and decided to knock on her door, even though it hurt to admit that she couldn't do it alone. Every step there was a mixture of shame and determination. She didn't know what she would find, but she knew that returning empty-handed was not an option. When she arrived, she saw Miss Carman sweeping the yard, and the smell of fresh coffee coming from the kitchen brought a comfort that Mary hadn't felt in weeks. She took a deep breath, held back her tears, and thought, "It's for Sophia. I'm going get." Miss Carman stopped sweeping and looked at Mary with those eyes that seemed to understand everything without needing words. Mary swallowed the lump in her throat and asked for anything she could give Sophia to eat. The neighbor didn't hesitate. She went into the house and came back with a fresh loaf of bread, some beans in a bowl, and 2 eggs wrapped in a cloth. As she handed them over, she held Mary's hand and said that Mr. Thomas from the farm needed someone to help with the garden. "If you want, he can give you some vegetables in exchange," she said, with a smile that seemed to turn on a light. Mary felt a warmth in her chest, as if the hope she thought was dead had given a sigh. She thanked him with a trembling voice, promising to return the favor one day. On the way back, with the bag weighing heavy on her arm, she imagined Sophia's little face when she saw the bread. Her daughter ran to meet her at the door, and for the first time in days, Mary saw a smile on her face. As she prepared an egg and bread for Sophia, she thought about what Miss Carman had said. Working in the garden wasn't much, but it was a start. She looked at the dented pot on the stove, remembering how Wilson would laugh when she tried to fix things. Now, without him, she was the one who would fix everything: the house, her life, her future. Mary finished washing the dishes and decided that she would talk to Mr. Thomas today. She didn't know if it would work, but she felt that for the first time she was taking control. The day wasn't over yet, and she could already feel that something inside her was changing. Mary finished tidying up the makeshift kitchen and looked out the window, where the sun was beginning to pierce the gray clouds. Sophia was sitting on the floor, chewing the last piece of bread with a smile that made Mary's heart clench with love and guilt. She took the old bag, put a dish towel inside to protect the remaining eggs, and called her daughter to go together to Sue Antonio's farm. The path was dirt, full of stones and puddles from the morning rain, and Mary held Sophia's little hand tightly, as if that was the only thing keeping her standing. Each step seemed to carry an invisible weight: the shame of asking for more help, the fear of not being enough for her daughter, and the memory of Wilson telling her she would never achieve anything alone. But as Sophia pointed to a little bird in the sky, Mary felt a new strength. Arriving at the farm, he saw Sue Antonio working the land with a slightly crooked straw hat. He looked up and gave a shy nod. Mary took a deep breath, cleared her throat, and asked about the work in the garden, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Mr. Thomas scratched his chin, looked at Sophia playing with a rock, and said he could use an extra hand. "You take care of the garden today, and I'll give you some potatoes and carrots to take home," he offered, in a calm voice that made Mary relax a little. She thanked him, feeling her eyes well up, but turned her face away so that no one could see. He took the hoe he gave him and thought that perhaps that would be the first step towards rebuilding everything. The work in the garden was hard, and the sun, now stronger, made sweat run down Mary's face. She weeded the soil, pulled weeds, and tried to follow Mr. Thomas's instructions, who pointed out which flower beds needed more care. Sophia ran around, picking up twigs and asking questions about the plants, which brought relief amidst her tiredness. Mary felt her hands ache with blisters starting to form, but each mound of soil turned over felt like a small victory. She thought about her daughter eating potatoes at night, maybe even with a broth made with carrots, and that kept her going. Between one hoe and another, she looked at the horizon, where the sky was now clear, and found herself imagining a different life, a house without leaks, Sophia at school, a table with food every day. Mr. Thomas passed by her, complimenting her work, and said that if she wanted, she could come back tomorrow to help with the new seedlings. "You have a knack for it," he said, with a smile that seemed sincere. Mary lowered her head, not knowing how to take the compliment, but she kept those words as if they were a gift. When she finished, Mr. Thomas handed her a bag full of potatoes, carrots, and even a bunch of cilantro, which she held as if it were a treasure. On the way back, with Sophia skipping beside her, Mary felt her chest lighten. It wasn't much, but it was hers, earned with her own effort. She looked at her daughter and silently promised that that day would be the beginning of something bigger, even if she didn't know how yet. Mary arrived home with her body tired, but her heart beating differently, as if something inside her had started to move. Sophia ran ahead, holding a carrot as if it were a trophy, and laughed out loud, which made Mary smile for the first time that day. She placed the bag on the rickety kitchen table, counting each potato and carrot carefully, as if she were planning the future with them. The smell of cilantro filled the air, and she imagined a warm soup for her daughter, something that could warm her belly and her heart. As she cut the vegetables with a dull knife, she thought about what Mr. Thomas had said about coming back tomorrow. It wasn't a real job, but it was a chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. Mary looked at the dented pot, the same one Wilson used to make empty promises, and decided that now she was going to use it for something real. She lit the stove with a slightly damp match, and while the water boiled, she sat down with Sophia to eat the rest of Miss Carmen's bread. Her daughter told made-up stories about the chickens on the farm, and Mary listened, feeling a quiet pride for having accomplished something today. When the soup was ready, the smell filled the house, and she served a deep bowl to Sophia, who blew on it carefully before tasting it. Seeing her daughter eat with gusto made Mary hold back her tears. It was the first time in weeks that she felt like she was doing her job as a mother properly. She promised herself that she wouldn't stop, that today wouldn't be just soup, but the beginning of a new life. After washing the dishes, Mary sat at the door of the house with Sophia already sleeping inside, wrapped in a thin blanket. The sky was starry, and the silence of the night seemed to carry a different weight now, not of despair, but of possibility. She thought about the vegetable garden, her calloused hands, Sue Antonio's praise. She remembered how Wilson had said she would never move from this place, and for the first time those words didn't hurt as much. Mary picked up the bag where she kept the vegetables and saw that there was still a small, slightly crooked potato that she had accidentally separated. She held that potato in her hand, feeling its rough texture, and thought that it was like her life now, imperfect, but with potential to grow. He decided that tomorrow, in addition to working in the garden, he would ask Mr. Thomas if he knew anyone who bought vegetables in the village. Maybe she could sell something, even if it was just a bunch of cilantro. The idea was timid, but it made her chest quicken. Mary looked at the stars, took a deep breath, and felt a courage she didn't know she had. It wasn't just about surviving another day. It was about building something that Sophia could one day be proud of. She went back inside, lay down next to her daughter, and, before closing her eyes, thought about what she was going to say to Mr. Thomas tomorrow. She wasn't sure if it would work, but for the first time in a long time she believed it was worth trying. The crouton remained on the table as a reminder that even the simplest things could be the start of something big. Mary woke up before the sun, her body still aching from working in the garden, but with new energy running through her veins. Sophia slept peacefully, breathing lightly, and Mary ran her hand through her hair, feeling a love that made her want to fight more. She took the potato wedge from the table, put it in the bag, and left quietly, so as not to wake her daughter. The path to Mr. Thomas's place seemed less heavy today, as if each stone on the ground was just a detail. The sky was still dark, but the fresh air carried a scent of wet earth that made her feel alive. Arriving there, he found Sue Antonio already in the chicken coop, separating eggs. She greeted him with a shy smile and asked if she could start early. He nodded, pointing to a new bed that needed seedlings. Mary picked up the hoe, feeling the blisters on her hands protest, but she didn't stop. While planting, I thought about the idea of selling vegetables. She didn't know where to start, but she imagined Sophia with a new backpack for school, and that made her dig harder. During a break, she plucked up the courage and asked Mr. Thomas if he knew anyone who bought coriander or potatoes in the village. He scratched his head, thought for a moment, and said that Donna Lucia, from the supermarket, sometimes picked up fresh things. Mary kept the name as if it were a jewel. When she finished the work, Mr. Thomas handed her another bag of vegetables, and she thanked him in a firm voice, feeling that she was building something, even if it was small. On the way back, with the sun rising, she decided that she would try to speak to Donna Lucia today. In the middle of the morning, Mary left Sophia with Miss Carmen, who offered her a strong coffee and a piece of cake. She thanked him, but her stomach was in knots with nerves. He took the bag with the croutons and some bunches of coriander that Mr. Thomas had given him and walked to the small market inn. The village, about 20 minutes away. The place was simple, with shelves full of cans and the smell of washing powder in the air. Donna Lucia was at the cash register, writing something down in an old notebook. Mary took a deep breath, fixed her hair, and approached, her heart beating as if it was going to explode. He explained that he had some fresh vegetables picked from Sue Antonio's farm and asked if she would buy them. Donna Lucy looked at the potatoes and the coriander, smelled the leaves, and made a face as if she were thinking. "It's really green here," he said with a half smile. He asked how much Mary wanted, and she, without really knowing, suggested a low price just to test. To her surprise, Donna Lucia accepted immediately, took the coriander and 3 potatoes, and handed over some coins. Mary held the money with trembling hands, feeling a surge of pride that almost made her cry right there. It wasn't much, but it was hers, earned with her own sweat. She thanked him, promising to come back with more things, and left the market with a light chest. On the way home, he bought a packet of cookies for Sophia with the coins, imagining his daughter's smile. For the first time, Mary felt that the future wasn't just a burden, it was something she could shape, one potato at a time. Mary walked home with a lighter step, as if the dirt floor had become softer under her feet. The little packet of biscuits in the bag looked like a small trophy, something so simple, but that carried enormous meaning. Sophia was in Miss Carmen's backyard playing with a piece of rope, and when she saw her mother, she ran to hug her. Mary handed over the cookie, and her daughter's eyes lit up as if it were a Christmas present. They sat together on the steps of the house, sharing the cookies, and Mary felt a warmth in her chest when she heard Sophia laugh, telling how she had run after a chicken earlier. She looked at her calloused hands, still dirty with dirt, and thought about the money she had earned with Donna Lucia. It was little, but it proved that she could do more than just survive. While Sophia chewed, Mary began to plan the next step. Maybe I could take more coriander tomorrow, or even ask Mr. Thomas if he had other things to sell, like zucchini or lettuce. The idea of having something permanent, even if it was small, made her heart beat faster. She hugged Sophia, smelling the sun in her daughter's hair, and silently promised that she would build a better life. The day was still light, and Mary decided to take advantage of the afternoon to clean the house, as if tidying up the corner where she lived could organize her thoughts. Each sweep of the floor seemed to lift a little of the weight Wilson had left behind, and for the first time she felt like the house was truly hers, not a remnant of the past. While sweeping, Mary found a small wooden box where Wilson kept trinkets, forgotten behind the door. He opened it out of curiosity and saw an old necklace, one of those cheap ones that he had given her when Sophia was born. For a second, the memory of him tightened her chest, but not like before. It wasn't longing, it was just an echo. She put the necklace away and continued sweeping, thinking that the past would no longer rule her life. Then he went to the kitchen and separated the rest of the vegetables he had, wondering what he could do with them. She decided to cook a more elaborate soup for dinner, with potatoes and a piece of carrot, and even tried to cut everything neatly, like she saw Miss Carmen do. While the pot bubbled, Mary sat on the rickety chair and did some math in her head. If I could sell something every day, maybe I could make enough to fix the roof before the next rain. The thought scared and excited her at the same time. It was a huge responsibility, but also a freedom she never had with Wilson. When the soup was ready, he called Sophia, and the two ate together, laughing at how the carrots had become a bit hard. Mary looked at her daughter covered in broth and felt that that moment, so simple, was worth more than any promise Wilson had ever made. Before going to bed, she took the potato tart, which was still in the bag, and placed it on the window, as if it were a reminder of what she had started today. She closed her eyes to the sound of the crickets outside. knowing that tomorrow she would wake up ready to try again, with more courage than ever. Mary spent the rest of the afternoon with an energy she couldn't explain, as if each small achievement of the day had ignited something inside her. After dinner, she washed the dishes carefully, looking at the dented pot and thinking that, who knows, one day she might buy a new one. Sophia was already drowsy, lying on the mat, and Mary covered her daughter with a blanket, feeling at peace when she saw her peaceful little face. Before turning off the lamp, she picked up an old notebook she found in the corner of the house, with slightly yellowed pages. She didn't have a pen, but she used a piece of charcoal to scribble down some ideas. She wrote coriander, potato, and lettuce, imagining what else she could offer Donna Lucia. She did some rough calculations, adding up how much she could earn if she sold something every day. It wasn't much, but it seemed like a map to somewhere better. Mary looked out the window where the crooked potato still rested, and felt a quiet sense of pride. Today she had done more than survive. She had taken a step, even if small, towards a life that was just hers and Sophia's. She lay down next to her daughter, listening to the noise of the night, and thought about Mr. Thomas and the vegetable garden. Tomorrow she would ask if he could teach her to plant something of her own, even if it was just in a corner of the farm. The idea was bold, but the day had shown her that she was capable of more than she imagined. She closed her eyes with a light smile, something she hadn't done in weeks, and fell asleep with the feeling that the future, for the first time, was not just a shadow. When the sun began to rise, Mary was already standing, with her notebook in her hand and her head full of plans. Sophia woke up excited, asking to go to the farm with her, and Mary laughed, saying that today was a day to work twice as hard. While they were drinking a weak coffee, she told her daughter, as if it were an adventure, that she was going to talk to Mr. Thomas about planting something new. Sophia clapped her hands, as if she understood the weight of it, and Mary felt her chest heat up. On the way to the farm, with Sophia skipping alongside her, she carried the bag with the rest of the coriander, thinking about taking it to Donna Lucia later. Arriving there, Mr. Thomas was watering the seedlings, and Mary approached with a good morning that was firmer than yesterday. She asked, somewhat awkwardly, if he could give her a small piece of land so she could try to plant something, even if it was just for her own consumption. He stopped, looked at her with a serious expression, and said he could think about it, but that she needed to show that she had what it took. Mary nodded, picking up the hoe with more eagerness than ever. As he worked, he imagined a bed full of green lettuce, something he could call his own. Sue Antonio passed by her late in the morning, and, without saying much, pointed to a corner of the farm, saying that it could be hers if she took good care of it. Mary held back her tears, thanking with a choked voice, and felt that that piece of land was more than soil. It was a chance to start over. On the way home, with Sophia singing a little song, she decided that she was going to make that flower bed work no matter what the cost. Mary returned from the farm with her heart racing, as if the little piece of land promised by Mr. Thomas was a hidden treasure. Sophia ran ahead, kicking pebbles, and Mary carried the bag with some more vegetables he had given her, some zucchini and a handful of onion rings. The sun was high, and the heat made her forehead shine with sweat, but she didn't care. Each step felt firmer, as if the ground was confirming that she was on the right path. Arriving home, she sat on the stairs to rest, watching Sophia play with a rag doll that Miss Carmen had given her. Mary took the old notebook and wrote lettuce in large letters, imagining the flower bed she was going to take care of. He thought about what it would be like to harvest something he had planted with his own hands, something he could sell or put on the table for his daughter. The idea scared her because she had never done it alone, but it also filled her with a courage she didn't know she had. While peeling a zucchini to make a stew for lunch, he decided he was going to study more about planting. Maybe Miss Carmen knew some trick, or even Sue Antonio could teach us. The important thing was not to stop. Mary served lunch too. Sophia, who ate it talking about the land her mother was going to have, and she laughed, feeling that her daughter believed in her more than she did. The afternoon still had a long way to go, and Mary wanted to enjoy every minute of that day that seemed so full of promise. After lunch, Mary washed the dishes and decided to go back to Donna Lucia's grocery store. She picked up the zucchini and onions, carefully arranging everything in the bag as if she were presenting something valuable. Sophia wanted to go with her, and Mary let her, liking the idea of showing her daughter that her work was paying off. On the way, her nervousness returned, but it was different now. It wasn't fear of failing, it was anxiety to do more. The grocery store was full, with two ladies talking at the checkout, and Mary waited her turn, holding the bag tightly. When Donna Lucia saw her, she smiled and asked what she had brought this time. Mary showed her the zucchini, saying that they were fresh, picked that morning, and Mary arrived home with the sunset dyeing the sky red, and with the feeling that the day had been bigger than herself. Sophia was humming, holding one of the coins that Donna Lucia had given her, as if it were a new toy. Mary put the money in a small glass jar, the one where Wilson used to leave change, but now it was hers with a greater purpose. She sat on the rickety kitchen chair, looking at the few zucchini that were left, and started planning dinner. She decided to make a simple stew with a piece of onion and a little broth that would warm her daughter's belly. While she cut the vegetables, she thought about what Donna Lucia had said about bringing more things next week. It was the first time someone had counted on her for something like that, and it made her feel a good responsibility, the kind that makes you want to get up early. Mary looked at Sophia, who was drawing in the old notebook with the piece of charcoal, and imagined her daughter one day telling this story, the mother who started with nothing and made it happen. The idea scared her, but it also filled her with pride. When the stew was ready, she called Sophia over to eat, and they both laughed at how the smell had filled the house. Mary took a spoonful, tasting the simple yet meaningful flavor. Before washing the dishes, she picked up the potato wedge from the window and held it in her hand, as if she could hold that entire day inside her. Today she hadn't just survived, she had built something, and that changed everything. After tidying up the kitchen, Mary sat at the door of the house, with Sophia already in bed, sleep taking her daughter away from the tiredness of the day. The silence of the night was broken only by the croaking of the frogs, and she looked up at the sky, which was now showing the first stars. She thought about the little piece of land that Mr. Thomas had promised her, imagining what it would be like to take care of it. She didn't know much about planting, but she remembered her grandmother saying that lettuce liked water and shade. Maybe she could start with that, something simple that didn't require much. Mary closed her eyes for a second, feeling the cool wind on her face, and let her mind wander. She saw a full vegetable garden, with Sophia helping to harvest, and even a little stall in the village where she herself sold what she planted. The dream seemed too big, but today had shown her that even small steps led somewhere. She went back inside, took out her notebook and wrote a few more words: carrot, tomato, watering, as if she were drawing the future. Before going to bed, she looked at the cooked potato still in the window and decided that tomorrow she would ask Miss Carman about seeds. Maybe the neighbor would know where to get some cheap ones, or even for free. Mary lay down next to Sophia, listening to her daughter's calm breathing, and felt the weight on her chest lighten. It wasn't just about the money or the garden. It was about believing that she could be more than what Wilson left behind. For the first time in a long time, she fell asleep without fear of tomorrow, with the certainty that she was starting to write a new story. Mary finished tidying the house as the sky outside darkened, with the stars shining brighter now. Sophia was sleeping soundly, hugging the rag doll, and Mary felt relieved to see her daughter so calm. She took the glass jar with the coins and counted them again, just to make sure. It was real. The sound of them clinking brought a smile she couldn't hold back. He sat on the steps of the door with the old notebook on his lap and began to scribble more ideas, even though the charcoal was almost gone. He wrote seeds and market, thinking about how he could turn that little piece of land into a real beginning. He remembered a fair that took place in the village on Saturdays, where people sold everything: fruit, handicrafts, homemade bread. Maybe in time she could take something there, even if it was just a bunch of lettuce. The idea seemed distant, but the day had shown that even the simplest things could grow. Mary looked at the cooked potato in the window, which already seemed like part of the house, and thought about how something so small had become a symbol of what she was building. Before going back inside, he took a deep breath, smelling the earthy scent that still came from his clothes. Today she had gained more than coins. She had gained respect for herself. She lay down next to Sophia, closing her eyes with a silent promise. Tomorrow she would talk to Miss Carman about the seeds and plan the flower bed. It wasn't just about planting. It was about showing her daughter that life could be more than just leftovers. As the night wore on, Mary dreamed of a lush vegetable garden, with Sophia running among the flower beds, laughing loudly. The dream seemed so real that she woke up with a warm heart, even before the sun rose. She got up without making a sound, picked up her notebook, and reread what she had written as if those words were a map. While she prepared a weak coffee, she decided that she would take advantage of the day to learn more. Miss Carman always spoke about plants with such affection, and Mary wanted to absorb every tip she could. When Sophia woke up, she told her daughter, with a sparkle in her eyes, that she was going to ask her neighbor for help to start the vegetable garden. Sophia clapped her hands, asking if she could help dig, and Mary laughed, saying that she would be the best assistant. After a breakfast with the remains of the reheated stew, Mary picked up her bag and called Sophia to go to Miss Carman's house. On the way, the sun was already warming the earth, and she felt an energy that seemed to come from the ground. When they got there, Miss Carman was in the backyard watering some herbs, and she welcomed the two with a hug. Mary explained, somewhat awkwardly, that she wanted to learn about seeds and planting lettuce. The neighbor smiled, pulled up a chair, and began to tell her everything she knew: how the soil needed to be soft, how to water without drowning the seedlings. Mary listened attentively, mentally noting every word, and felt that this moment was another brick in the life she was building. Miss Carman gave her a small packet of lettuce seeds, saying it was a gift to get started. Mary held the bag carefully, as if it were the key to a better future, and thanked her with tears in her eyes. Mary returned from Miss Carmen's house with the bag of seeds in her hand, feeling it so light and so heavy at the same time. Sophia walked alongside, talking non-stop about how she was going to take care of the garden with her mother, and Mary smiled, imagining her daughter with her little hands covered in dirt. The sun was already low, painting the sky orange, and she decided that before the day ended, she would take the first step on Suantonio's little piece of land. He took the old hoe he had at home, a leftover that Wilson never used properly, and went with Sophia to the farm. The place was quiet, with Suantonio already at home, and Mary felt a new freedom when stepping on the land he had given her. He knelt down, smelling the damp smell of the soil, and began to dig carefully, removing stones and loosening the earth as Miss Carmen had taught him. Sophia helped, throwing clods away, and the two laughed when a frog jumped out of the middle of the earth. Mary opened the bag of seeds, took a handful, and spread it calmly, covering everything with a thin layer of soil. She didn't know if it would work, but each seed seemed like a promise she made to herself and her daughter. When he finished, he looked at the small flower bed, so simple, but so full of hope, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. He took the crooked potato, which he still carried in the bag, and placed it next to the flower bed, as if it were a sign of what had begun there. On the way home, with Sophia skipping hand in hand, Mary felt that that day had been a milestone, the day she planted more than lettuce. At home, Mary made some tea with the remaining herb that Miss Carmen had given her, and sat on the stairs with Sophia, who was already yawning. The sky was dark now, dotted with stars, and she thought about the flower bed, imagining the seedlings sprouting in a few weeks. She remembered how, in the morning, everything had seemed so uncertain, and now she had seeds in the ground, coins in the little pot, and a daughter who believed in her. The weight of Wilson's abandonment still haunted her, but today it seemed smaller, like a shadow that no longer reached her path. Mary hugged Sophia, feeling her daughter's warmth, and told an improvised story about a magical vegetable garden that grew with love. The girl fell asleep on her lap, and Mary carefully carried her to the mat, covering her with a blanket. Before going to bed, she took out her old notebook and wrote "First Flower Bed" in charcoal, underlining it as if it were an important title. She looked out the window where the crooked potato was no longer. Now it belonged to the farm, next to the seeds. Mary lay down with her body tired, but her head full of plans. She thought about how she would water the flower bed tomorrow, about bringing more vegetables to Donna Lucia, about learning more from Miss Carmen. The future was still hazy, but for the first time she felt like she could draw it with her own hands. She closed her eyes, listening to the sound of the crickets, and a quiet peace took hold of her. Today she had done more than survive. She had started to live again, and that was greater than anything Wilson could ever have taken away. Mary ended the day with a feeling that couldn't fit inside her chest, as if every little piece of that dirt floor had become a part of her. After putting Sophia to bed, she returned to the front door, looking at the starry sky that seemed bigger. That night, he picked up the jar of coins and held it up to the dim light of the lamp, seeing the timid shine of the metal. It wasn't much, but it was honest, earned with her sweat, with the courage she didn't even know she had until today. He thought about the flower bed he had planted, the seeds hidden in the soil, and imagined the lettuce growing, green, ready to be harvested. He remembered Sophia's smile as she threw dirt, the way Miss Carmen spoke affectionately, the confidence Donna Lucia showed when she bought the vegetables. Every moment of that day felt like a brick in a new house, one she was building on her own. Mary put the little pot away and picked up the notebook, writing Rigas and Ferra de Vila with the rest of the charcoal. Before turning off the lamp, she looked at the corner where the cooked potato was, now empty because she had left it there. That potato, so ugly and so simple, had become the symbol of everything she had achieved today, not just a flower bed, but the certainty that she could start over. She lay down with a light heart, feeling that Wilson's abandonment no longer defined who she was. For the first time in months, she didn't dream about the past, but about a future where Sophia ran through a full vegetable garden, and that was all she needed to close her eyes in peace. Mary didn't just plant seeds, she planted hope, and that changed everything forever. When she woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming in through the broken window, and she was already thinking about the flower bed, watering it, and the next vegetables for Donna Lucia. But looking back, what really stuck with her was that day, the day she decided not to give up. The cooked potato, which started out as a forgotten leftover, became the milestone of her new beginning. Years later, when the garden had grown and Mary was already selling at the village fair, with Sophia studying and the house repaired, she would still tell this story to her friends, her eyes shining. She would show them a photo of the flower bed where the potato had been until it became part of the soil, and say that it all started there. It wasn't just about lettuce or coins. It was about proving to herself that she was stronger than any abandonment. The little jar of coins became a little box, then a savings account. But what never changed was the pride she felt for that day. Mary knew that the path would not be easy, that there would still be rain and rocks. But she also knew that she could face anything, because that day she discovered that the future was not something that someone gave her. It was something that she built with her calloused hands and a heart full of Sophia, and no one would ever take that away from her. Every lettuce she picked, every customer who smiled, every laugh from her daughter was an echo of that day, a reminder that she had transformed a remnant into a small empire, but hers. Mary closed the notebook that night, but the story that began there still lives on, like the seeds that sprouted and never stopped growing.
Like and subscribe for more inspirational stories.